So now we've got to behave ourselves. Now we're recording. So what I might do is take out this. I don't know who's on the Miro board, but what I'll do to guide this is present. Aha. Can you see my screen? Are we good? Okay, if I move up, I can see the chat. Okay, so first things first. The first thing I think that would be good to talk about and get what people's thoughts on what they think insight sharing is about is what you think should be included. Like, and this is kind of like, you know, kind of the data links, this like what is important to you. It's like how it should be represented. Some of the things we've added on there is like what we think might be the bare bones that would be useful to kind of show the information and then also kind of gauge some level of interaction. And that is a title, a description, that kind of body of the text, some tags so it can actually be grouped together. So if you've got loads of like insights about a DEX or DeFi or environment or something, some sort of taxonomy that actually makes it easy enough to group these together. So you can see that kind of trend, that historic trend. Some up and down votes. So they're saying this is more of a high priority thing. This is really useful. Down votes saying this isn't relevant. And then some way to kind of react and respond. So some comments with at least probably, you know, a layer or two layers of kind of nesting so people can reply to comments. And that at the moment is a kind of bare kind of idea. So my thought process now is just to completely open the door and see if there's any kind of different thought process people have on how this could be done, or certain things that we could be completely overlooking. And it is worth saying that the idea of us kind of doing this, and the big problem with idea scale, is it's very kind of an ephemeral kind of thing where you do it for 1 week and then the data gets lost. It's not very well tagged, and it's kind of hard to access. The thing that we'd love to see is that data is completely open source. It's easy for someone to come in and start to add and improve this kind of process themselves, because we own the kind of tool, like as a community, and that it actually helps to influence. This is the first stage of people starting to kind of say, for instance, if I don't know if anyone's seen Sebastian's video like yesterday or the other day about scaling, a great kind of example of just like something that's really important that needs to float to the top, and everyone's like, yes, that people should be making proposals for this or making challenges. So how can we think about that life cycle we'll come on to, of like, how can we start with this and how can it lead to the next thing? So that's all I'll say. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in and throw kind of what might be going on their head on what's important for this insight sharing, the ideas. It can be anything that's kind of very first thing that comes to people's mind.
So really, are we talking about the existing idea scale interface or the process itself here?
We are just talking about the insight sharing phase within idea scale. So it's a phase within idea scale that is dedicated for just sharing your insights. So there's a week before you can submit proposals that's literally just for whacking in insights that some people don't even know about it. Like if you go onto it in idea scale, you will be able to find it in there, but it's something that's kind of somewhat used, but not a lot. And it can also be quite confusing because it's kind of in the same proposal kind of process as the, same with the challenge settings, proposals, and insight sharing is using the same tool. So people can get confused by it, but it's that week-long kind of step where we submit ideas and stuff that aren't proposals. These aren't going to be going through the process. It's just insights. So I don't know if anyone here, that would be interesting to know, like, is everyone here even aware of that stage? Like, or have you not seen it? I'm guessing maybe not if you've
yeah, I've never seen it or used it, to be honest.
There we go. That's all the validation I need done. End recording. Anyone else? Has anyone else used it?
No, I actually see it the first time, so like consciously.
Oh, as in recently, or just as in literally right now?
Oh, like I don't really know what, like, how this fits into the to all the other stages. Like, I've never experienced an insight sharing.
Yeah.
So,
I've used it a little bit. Yeah, I've used it a little bit. I guess I think going into the details about why it's helpful to have that stage, because there's been some discussion in town halls in the past about how having an ideation phase before submitting proposals will actually help people make better ideas. So I think focusing on how better ideas can be formulated through the process of people interacting is an important place to start.
I like that thought process. I think that's not something I went into depth about. And what I'll do now is I'm going to zoom in and kind of add some detail to that. There is change that as to a different color. So we've got ideas for things that can be made. We've got insights, are just things that are going on in like crypto, blockchain, just things that we should be aware of. We've got kind of issues. These are all kind of things. These are all kind of things that people could just have something come up. It's just kind of insight. We're kind of seeing ideas and issues somewhat under insights because they're kind of this kind of thought process. It's like something needs to be done. There's something, or it's interesting, or it's like a new idea. There may be other categories here, but there's merit to potentially focusing on one of these, or kind of just trying to be like it's open for all of them. I don't have any strong opinions on that at the moment. I'll open the floor if anyone does.
I guess my thought on it is like some of the ideas that I was thinking about for one of my proposals that didn't get funded. Like it involves like sort of like an incubator process, but it's for incubating proposals and teams. So like I don't know if it needs to be that in depth, but I think the idea of how people's ideas play against each other and the way that people can find each other if they want to form a team and submit a proposal together. I think that's important.
I like that. It could be because the idea and the insight kind of thing comes first, and it kind of leads to this. At the moment, friends, I can show you this links to the life cycle thing. So we've got this kind of insight kind of creation stage, and then engagement, elevate this best insights, and then leading to this draft proposal, submitted proposals as like a base kind of like life cycle. But I think there's merit instantly from what you said there to think about how this can lead straight away to. There's that boot camp that was kind of suggested. It could be going through some very embryonic stages, kind of there. This is the kind of team formation is kind of part of this, where there's kind of engagement and this team creation, which is this kind of incubation that you were talking about.
I think the way that the process works now, people submit proposals and then they find team members later. It's not like it's, I don't know, it seems like it's not really I don't know. It's hard to describe what I'm trying to say. Like
it doesn't.
The process of team formation and proposal submission. Like you have to rearrange everything in the middle if you're going to group in different team members and merge proposals or something like that.
You bring up a good point, because I try to make sense of this insight sharing. Like, what is the goal here? Why would I do this? And for example, if I already have a team, I don't need to do the insight sharing. So maybe you should call it like find a team or something like this.
Well, there's there's also the important aspect that it helps you to formulate your ideas better if you have ideas coming from different places. Like maybe someone has a different perspective than you do, and it helps you shape your ideas better if you're playing your ideas against other perspectives. So that's part of it. So it doesn't have to be just dealing with like gathering people for your project. It can also be for you to get some feedback on your ideas and to look at what other people are putting out there and see if that aligns with what you want to do. So like the cross-pollination of ideas is part of it.
Yeah, I think that there's always value to kind of showcasing, even if you're an existing team, to showcasing what you're thinking of doing as early as possible, just for feedback, just for to gauge, and even just for like marketing. So if this is like, if there is a good tool for just as soon as you're ready to share something, you can, and whether that's an idea for something you actually want to work on with an existing team, and you can start to get that feedback process. I think one thing that's missing in here that I don't think what we do in the first version is ideas could be a good way to kind of list things you're missing. So if you did have like a 2-person team and you needed that one extra person, you could list in the idea itself, list so competencies lacking, competencies lacking, list lacking, competencies lacking. So if they're a little bit further along and they have some idea, it could almost be just like, here's an idea. If anyone's interested in working on this, you can reach out. So it's just kind of that instant first kind of, we're in an embryonic stage, we're just kind of chatting. If you want to chat about it, boom, like it's making that very clear to someone that you should reach out. So I think there could be value in that to kind of expand on it. I don't think we perfect that model with what we've been funded at the moment, but I think I really like that thought process of it leading into that, making that easier. Because the earlier that happens, the better, because then you help to prevent this kind of like duplicate proposals process of March. If it's like it's been there for a while and everyone knows that's a good place to look for what's going on, and you can be like, oh, I want to look up things that are happening with DEXs or the environment, and you can easily find them. Should help with collaboration, hopefully.
I think there's a few different classifications of ideas that you might want to look at, because you've got the people who already have a project they're considering to start with, and then you've got people who have ideas with a certain scope of interests, and they want to apply that to a project, or they want to just throw out maybe some problem in the space, like some gap in the space that needs to be filled, or like there's different things that could interact with each other. Like you can put someone with ideas, like point them towards a team that needs that. I don't know. Yeah.
I like that. I think that makes sense. Yeah, like you could just be the person who has 5 great ideas, but you have no capacity to work on them, or you don't want to, or for whatever reason, and you're just throwing them out there and say, and if maybe there's a way to indicate that I'm not actively working on it or some sort of thing like that. Maybe that's just a simple indication would be like, do what you want with this, which I think it would be a kind of initial how this would kind of pan out. It's like a way to contact people and talk about it, and people can take it over as they like, kind of thing. Yeah, I feel people might use it most for things like out of these kind of 3 things. I think people will probably use it most for ideas, the things they want to do, and then also kind of issues and just the things that are going wrong. Insights, people kind of do that a bit in the Catholics, that kind of process, the insight showing thing, but I think that happens a bit less. So people are happy that they notice what's going wrong and they kind of share those issues. So in terms of like, I think they're all really valuable. And the data model for them kind of maps this kind of process. There may be value in kind of indicating that it is an idea, it is an issue, or it's an insight, maybe. I don't think you necessarily have to do that immediately.
But an insight can also contain the issue raised or seen and an idea for a possible solution or not? Or is an insight just feedback on an idea? Or because like for me, insight encompasses also issues and ideas, but that could be because I'm using the term wrong.
I kind of agree that it is more kind of insights can be both of them, and it's like I feel it's not like it's not a hard line between these things. They overlap, because like you could be presenting an idea that's literally is an issue I have, and here's like a solution to it, so you're kind of doing two at the same time. And I think it is kind of it would be a tool that would be fluid between these kind of things. You're kind of sharing something that you think is useful, and people will respond to it. So I would agree. I'd agree. There's it's not a hard line. I can't think of other types of information that would be useful at this stage. It's like the embryonic people just got something they need to share, and we're trying to gauge how important is it. Because like I think a good example of this is, I don't know about everyone else, but personally I was a little bit disappointed in the challenge, the amount of ADA that went into the challenge settings, and then also kind of the ones that were selected. I felt there was better selections out there. And this is kind of thing where it's just kind of like, this is an issue, and you could have, that's someone could see that and be like, they add an issue in, or they could have an idea how to solve it. They could just be that the insight breaking down why, going through the data of why, how it's going to pan out, and maybe it's something like that. And it's just this kind of crowd problem sensing kind of tool, and then trying to work out of these things that people have been saying, what's the most important, what things are floating to the top, which then hopefully will lead into the next stage with this life cycle of that engagement. Will it lead to things that people going, for ideas for boot camps, but like elevate these best ideas, and then could they lead to draft proposals, or I think even just straight away into tooling. Like some people just may make a tool straight away, start solving problems, tools or processes. AWG, I don't think we spoke on Discord. I can't remember what your name is. I don't know if you sent it to me on Discord, but I don't know if you wanted to share anything or any thoughts. Or you can be passive, of course. I'm not trying to drag anyone onto the stage.
Hey, George.
Hey.
My name is Angela.
That's it. We've spoken before, now I remember.
Hi.
Hey.
Nothing to add at this point.
We've got it then. I think we've got the solution now, darling. So there's going to be. It was interesting. We had for the results for this. It was definitely the most contentious win that I've had for a while for my proposals. There's plenty of downvotes. There was enough obviously upvotes, but there was also plenty of downvotes. And I can understand people's, some people don't even know about the insight sharing thing, so they could have looked at it and be like, "What the hell are you thinking about here? Like, we don't need this," or like, "What's the?" So it is. I'm going to be interested to see how the community responds to this when we implement it. Me and Darlington are definitely not scared at all, for sure. Please don't.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think what you said is not a lot of people know about the insight sharing thing, right? And the window is so short. So far, it's been 3 to 5 days, and then it's over. Right, and then it goes away. Then you're into drafting and stuff, and having a space where those ideas can live way past a funding round, 2, 3, 4 funding rounds, and they can kind of have a life of their own. I think that will have value, and people might engage more. And hopefully, I think for me, anyways, my interest in the project is that it will create higher quality proposals, right? It will reduce the noise that's in idea skill or whatever platform we decide to do proposal management in. But I think it's one of those things you got to build it, and then they will come.
I think this is also another thing that we need IOG to help endorse as well, because they have the biggest
Right.
clout in promoting it, which we've talked about Darlington. But if it's actually kind of this takes over the process, and it's open source data, so people can start consuming it how they want. We're going to have the API available. So if someone like, I think, this is the perfect example of where maybe Lido Nation goes, here's all this ideas, kind of insights and stuff. I'm just going to do some kind of cool, interesting graphs looking at, oh, here are the most popular topics people are talking about. And, what
Right.
on the PACE site, it would just be this like, just adding the ideas into this data, and it's an open data kind of thing. But people could do what the hell they want with it. And I think the richer it is, the more people, use that kind of open source kind of data repository we have, the more we can start to draw trends and be more proactive about kind of identifying things.
Right. One of the pains, or at least one of the disadvantage of the way Catalyst work now is we don't really have the benefit of prior conversations, prior discussions. It's hard to like open a resource and like try to do some comprehensive research of how many marketing proposals has been, and what were comments like, what was repeated comments across the last 5 funds, right? And like having conversations like that. And part of why it's hard is because there's not that data standard. So I think the more we can kind of piece these different parts of the process to dedicated tools that cater specifically to that part of the process, and start iterating on there, who knows? And at the end of the line, there can still be one unifying interface that pull all of that together, right? And get it, as long as that API exists and stuff like that. So
I think you touched on a really good point there, is that if we have this better tooling for the insight sharing thing, and that data is public, and the other thing where Darlington's been funded for is the API for Catalyst data, is that if you make we have a certain taxonomy that is going to be really, really important that we use across ideas and proposals, and we start to move over to this taxonomy, then when you make that idea, we can actually pull in relevant proposals to do with, let's say, an idea or this kind of thing. So we could actually kind of start guiding that kind of like, oh, like, here's some related proposals. If you wanted to see, when you're making that idea and making that kind of, insight or whatever your kind of thing, oh, if you want to see some relevant data that's already like further ahead and it's already been done historically, it brings that in. And
right.
maybe they could pin that to the idea to be like, and so then that you have the link there and they're kind of talking about it. It's like, these 3 dexes and they failed to do this, or maybe this could be collaboration here. So you start to make it much more rich because you're pulling in this kind of other data that is very relevant to that insight kind of thing. So this is, I think, how we could move it to the next level in probably not this funded proposal, but this is the next step. So I love that idea. I'm really just gonna, because I can't see the names. Kenrick, how are we doing? I saw you joined.
How are you?
Very well,
Just
yourself?
listening in, but yeah, nice to join you all.
I don't know if you can see the history of the chat. So the Myra board.
I saw it. Okay.
You can see that? Okay, great. So
I'm only going to stay for another minute or so I think I'll just listen in. But yeah, it sounds really interesting.
Yeah, if you had anything you wanted to jump in with, or something that's on your mind for this kind of topic, then throw it out. And yeah, obviously you're welcome to pop in and out as you please.
Thanks, George.
No worries. I will show back. So yeah, how to incentivize participation. I think that's, yeah. This is, so obviously I've kind of reached out to Dan about this. This is an interesting thing. So I don't think it's important in the beginning, but it'd be interesting to see, are these contributions something that we want to kind of reward? Like, for instance, if I'm a community member, and maybe my kind of talent is I can really see what's going on. I'm really up to date with the market stuff, and I'm bringing in really valuable insights and ideas. Like, that is actually quite a valuable contribution. You might not be the coder or the designer or the planner or anything in the later stages that takes it through to the final stage, but you could be providing this really useful kind of guidance to the community because you just spent loads of times looking at all the other ecosystems, and that's because to actually do that well, you have to spend a lot of time looking at other ecosystems to be up to date. And then to actually just come in and be like, oh, you guys have not looked at this, this, and this, but have you seen this? To provide that insight to the community and it get voted up is actually super valuable. So something that Dan's already been looking at a lot and using, and I've only been looking at much more closely recently, and will continue to look at much more closely, is source cred. And I think if I don't down if that if just put there, that's the name of it.
One of the others here, but can put it up again.
Yeah. I think is it sourcecred.io, just to have a link in the thing.
Yeah.
There you go. So there's a nice link, not beautifully formatted, but it is what it is. This is really interesting. So I think this is something that's like, I don't think we're going to solve this problem in, because one, there's not really funding for it, and two, it's not an easy problem to solve. Even just in general for small teams, this contribution thing is really, really damn difficult to do well. But it seems like we're starting to get there with different DAOs. But I think this is an interesting thing that we could explore for the wider community in the future, where there's people who are literally thought leaders and they provide super insightful problems or ideas, and that's all they do. They could be the one that takes it through to the end, they could be not, but if there's a way to like highlight them and for them to, maybe they get like a credential to say they're the most valuable person in the insight sharing stage, and it's like a form of reputation. Maybe they get rewarded ADA. Maybe like I don't think it's obvious and exactly what should happen there, but really it is I think it's quite obvious. It's really, really valuable, people who can do that. And especially if you can incentivize it, because then it becomes a flywheel where like you've got the best ideas, insights coming into the community, and everyone's they have a catalyst, gives you the way to get funded. So it's kind of like, how can you get a better flywheel than those two things coming together, and a way to bring like the collaboration together as well. So I don't know if you have any kind of thoughts on, based on your experience of source cred, on the practicalities of that, Dan. Just say it's possible. We're doing it.
Well, it's absolutely possible. It's just, as you said, damn hard, because it can be gamed, and you need to tweak it, and you need to communicate how it works to the community to actually use it. It's a process, but we're sharing all the insights that we gather over the next couple of months with you. And I'm also working with Swarm together to set it up for the Swarm server to test it out. So yeah, let's see. But it is definitely possible. It just takes a lot of work and careful tweaking with the parameters, because you can basically set it up as you want. It's completely open source, and there's the basic config is just very basic. It doesn't get you anywhere. So yeah, it's this is a big community project, I think, where we can all pool our the results and the configs that we use, and then talk about this.
I think it's same with like Swarm, and that's great that Swarm's doing it, because like I'm interested in kind of if when I read into it more, and definitely using it as well. I think with that experience in the community, if we're using these similar kind of things, moderating it will understand how to kind of solve that problem, how you're going to moderate these things, and what's the cadence for how often you do it, and all that kind of side. But I think the issue, I guess, with this wider kind of idea for how can we reward this kind of wider contributions where anyone can get involved, it's very low friction for someone to get involved, and it shouldn't be like a really hard kind of deal to. There may be some friction where we just kind of had requires anti-Sybil resistant, anti-Sybil. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. I think it's just, I don't say anti, I think I'm just saying requires Sybil. So yeah. So things on like Gitcoin, where they have proof of humanity, bright idea, and that kind of thing. I feel that kind of thing will be needed for this as well. We need some sort of way to prevent spamming people of these insights and things, just to try and gain the reward. And it also, you could have maybe some simple friction as well. Maybe you have to have done something, X thing, or you know, and it could just be obviously the proof of humanity stuff, but maybe there's something else that someone does that just means.
Also set source code up that only specific roles can aggregate it, so that you need to advance to a certain level where you have the proof of human done by the peer members, and then only then can you aggregate the source code. So this is absolutely possible, like tweaks like this.
So another thing that we were looking at in our research is, in addition to an identity, we thought it would be a good idea to monitor the degree of correlation between votes. That way you could get kind of an early warning of collusion. And it also could be, I don't know which is simpler actually to implement. I guess with all the progress that Cardano was making with Atala Prism, you know, maybe an identity system isn't that far away for the voting process. But maybe even before that, it might be easier to implement something that monitors the degree of correlation between separate wallets voting. And then if there is a very high degree of correlation, you kind of treat that whole group as a common cohort that gets weighted, you know, appropriately because it's correlated.
Interesting. Yeah, like I timing it. I think they could be in a similar kind of speed. Like it's still early days with Tyler Prism. I'm in the cohort for doing it.
Yeah.
They're not recommending, so the app store stuff they have it with that wallet. They're not really calling that a wallet or necessarily something that we're going to be. It's not open source, and it's not necessarily something they're pushing us to use. So there is going to be a bit of infrastructure build up before that progresses. I think there's a few questions that need to be answered and a few things that need to be solved. But I imagine it will come around, you know, at the right time, where if this insight sharing tool could get enough volume, then hopefully it would be about the right time to start solving these kind of problems. Hopefully without needing to do too much.
I look forward to talking more, but I have to go to another meeting now. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Kenrick.
Take care.
What was I going to? I was going to add something to here. Yeah, I like the idea that potentially if you make, and this could go back to if we're trying to mark these contributions as valuable. If someone creates a draft proposal, the proposals, maybe there could be a nice way to link relevant insights, ideas from proposals. So you can, you're kind of indicating, it could be kind of an automated process where you kind of have an idea and you say, okay, turn this into a draft proposal, and it takes you for a flow potentially. Or it could be you go for the draft proposal thing and you say, what insights influenced this proposal, if any? Like if you have some things that you just want to be like, these are great, then you could be kind of saying, and there's like an easy thing to that way. Obviously, you know, if that draft proposal gets funded, then in like a source grid system or something similar, you could be saying these insights get some sort of reputation, some grain in source grid for thank you for helping to push the thought process forward and create these proposals that actually got funded in the end. So having these kind of links to it, I think in the future, it's not necessarily going to be from the starting point, but in the future could be really valuable to accredit people for.
I don't know if this is of any help, but in early childhood development, they do say that the child that learns to sit down and sit still for longer periods of time does eventually manage to succeed in whatever subject they take on. I wonder if a similar thing could be used here where, and this is no, I'm not having an issue with people who can't choose between rooms and want to jump around, but perhaps if anyone stays to the end of a meeting, that's when they get the badge. And then anyone who kind of does a 30, okay, let's say it's a 1 hour meeting. You stay for the 1 hour, you get the badge. Anyone who does a half hour gets half a badge. Anyone who does, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Is that
I
more
don't know
linked
if that
to?
would only, yeah, there's plenty of ways to argue against it, but just a thought.
No, I like I think that it is related to the more related to the community credentials idea, that proposal. Is that more related to that? Because that's something that I know I've been talking about a lot. Is if people attend like these Catalyst Swarm sessions, they could be issued a credential just to say they participated in something in this, and then over time you're kind of showing that history of participation. That idea matched really well to that. I don't know if that was what maybe I talked about it earlier. I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
from last week.
Yeah.
There's the whole idea of attendance, getting a badge for attendance.
Yeah, and I definitely agree that topic is definitely separate from what we're talking about now. But the same kind of rules apply. Like if you had insight share, if you had kind of storm, if insight sharing, let's say this, and this has actually led to a really good idea actually. Like if you had someone just going to say, they kind of say, let's talk about, I think this is an issue. You could say, let's do a group session. It's a group session to kind of talk about things. So you're actually trying to raise this issue, and then you have something linked to it. And if they attend all of that kind of session and provide and have some, maybe it's participation, so you're kind of engaging with it, you could have a credential for that. So this links those kind of two things I talked about last week and this what we're doing right now. That's actually quite a cool idea. So saying, oh, I'm free to talk about this, I'd like to discuss, because everything doesn't necessarily need to go initially fine in the comment section with replies, kind of just like Reddit, you normal. But maybe this is kind of one of those things is, like I'm going to promote this to say, let's do a swarm, let's make this, host this as a swarm session. And then it becomes, you kind of automate this kind of flow from something that people have obviously got interest in, push it into some sort of swarm session setting. And then there's all this kind of benefit, hopefully, of having, let's say, participation. Maybe there's a way of saying this person in this conversation has provided lots of useful ideas that is being taken out and then put back into the kind of insight data. It could loop background, but that's what you just suggested. I think that's a really cool idea as a link. Group session.
Yeah, you could offer insights that have become highly active in their engagement, a breakout session room in the after town hall. That's something also you can offer in the beginning.
Sorry, say that last bit again, because my text isn't working. Daniel, what was the other thing you could offer? I don't know if I grasped it.
That for highly engaging insights or insights that have become very active, you could say that once they reach a certain threshold, you will create a breakout room session for them in the after town hall, so that they can, start the incubation or even proposal writing or finding maybe their team even in the session.
So let's say popular insights could lead to automatic session. They could also lead to another type of reward, and this again would be subject to the issue of it being gamed, but maybe they get a contribution credential or something like that, just to be like, I've met some sort of threshold. Maybe there's something useful there. I'm not too sure, because we have the source code kind of reputation. Maybe there's a credential or something that's useful there, because then you kind of build up that you are someone who's really good at that, and maybe it's indicated by the source spread thing. Maybe it's indicated by credentials. I think that's to be explored, but I think, it's what can happen when you get to a popular insight. What can we do after that? And I think an automatic session or suggest.
Sorry.
After you.
You could also do something like, because it's very popular since a couple of years now, this achievement hunting. So you just get an achievement that's like an NFT, just a nice medal or something that says popular insights, and then you send it to the person wallet, which is something more tangible than a source credit contribution.
Yeah, I think this is a good example of where NFTs could make sense. Yeah, there's just like something that you is a way to like add a financial reward, because like if it's a scarce thing that's not easy to get, then it's like you can collect it or you can sell it. You can be like it's it could be you could have it so someone makes such a good idea that actually you could have somebody that makes an idea that changes the world, which is the crazy thing. Like that's not out of the question. Like I'm not trying to be super bullish on this tool that we're going to solve the world, but we are. But it could also you could get someone who's like makes such an impact from one thing they've done that it leads with the right processes that it's going to lead to this kind of boom.
Yeah, and imagine you have a reward NFT of that insight that
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What a way to reward someone for something that starts that snowball, and then they've got kind of that proof of it. I really like that thought process, because yeah, it's very often those people, people with the creatives and the ideas can be left out as like not. It's hard to prove it. It's kind of the execution's the most important bit, but like to have some sort of way to be like, this led to that. Now I have a way to verify it. Whether it happens is another question. It may never happen, but if it did and you had that, and you're an ideas person, you have such more of an incentive to do it. So I like it.
I think like having a history of the ideas that are submitted and maybe the way the ideas are connected to each other, it provides the same recognition. Like it doesn't have to be something else than the idea itself, but if there's a way to track it back to the people who sort of built up the parts of an idea, like how they connect to successful projects in the future.
I think I missed this out, and you're absolutely right. So having the identity attached to the idea is this other kind of core thing. You're not submitting it anonymously, or if you are, you've met the minimum threshold that we have on the site, which could be something very simple. But if it has more information about you that you were happy to share, then that should always be available. And I think then you have that link, it's attached to the idea, and you get that kind of thing. So, and it's obviously also really important for all of these things, the reward NFT, the contribution, all these different credential ideas. So
the idea itself could be the NFT, and people could trade it if they wanted to, but like that way it doesn't have to necessarily be tied to identity. I'm not sure on how that would play out in the long run, but like if you have an NFT that's related to an idea you made and people think that that's a valuable contribution, maybe they'll buy the idea from you or something. I don't know, the NFT of the idea.
You could run it in two separate ways. One is sort of an automated, how many minutes did this human spend in this meeting or swarm session or whatever. And the second one could be a community thing where at the end of every meeting, there could be a tiny vote. This person gave me the happy feelings. They made me feel welcome. They made me feel, so that's more of the soft skills type of scenario. You could bring in the community and have a badge that's, I don't know how that would be coded, but just as an idea.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah,
I think that brings out the idea that there's different kinds of contributions that people make. They don't have to be some technical thing or some idea that changes the direction of a project. Maybe it's just facilitating the conversation or making people feel welcome. There's all sorts of things that are valid contributions to progressing the ideas that are going into proposals. So
yeah, I guess the other small kind of thing is also you could have someone who's like a networker and they're the ones who bring other people in. Kind of, it's not a hard thing to reward per se. Like you could just have, it's like a referral kind of link per se. It's just like, I know someone who would be interested in this idea or insight, and it would impact that kind of the act of taking that and then referring it is a valuable contribution, because it's kind of like you're helping to spread the things that are relevant to the people that are relevant, and again compounding this kind of so I don't know how that maps out and how that pans out, but referring insights is valuable to improve collaboration and / awareness. Yeah, I like that. We've got some fairly good things here. This is great success. Yeah, so is there anything on life cycle? Is there any, so we create these insights and ideas, and they go through, it's an idea, it's an issue, it's an insight. We've got these kind of things that can be linked together, and it kind of starts to lead hopefully to, I think, the draft proposals and this team kind of creation is kind of the obvious flow.
Why not simple, very simple, and just go like seed, sap, or seedling, tree, and fruit, and just then have, if need be, sub cycles within, but maybe it's a good idea to try and keep it simple with the first iteration.
I think the summary of that is giving branding stages. So like giving them some identity, image, name that's more easy to understand. So like me saying insight creation goes through to engagement, goes through to like draft proposals, is kind of, you need to know a bit about the system to understand it. There could be some visualization that kind of shows that it's very clear that it's from this to this to this, here's the name, and you're kind of adding some better visual cues and information to explain how the importance of this can lead to something that's really great. And that could be, like you said, and I'll add that as an example, a sapling to a tree. So this is a very good product UX kind of sapling to tree. That is a very good product. Next step insight, I'd agree. I like that. So they could, some of these insights could lead straight away to, like, some people could just not even go through the proposal process. They could just, it's not necessarily has to do that. So it's like, people could just go straight away and just make the tool process and solve it. And they're just doing it for reputation. Maybe it's, they've got spare time and it's just a passion of theirs.
Yes, one of the things, like the process of proposal submission is for getting funding for a project. So if there's something that people see that they can put together without funding, and maybe it turns into a project that can fund itself, like this is something that they can quickly get to market and not have to go through that process, and having a tool where it helps you shape your ideas, whether you're submitting a proposal or not, is useful.
So it's almost like, and this could change what is draft proposals is called, because it could just almost be like, I don't want to say business plan, but kind of just like, this is embryonic stage where it could turn into a proposal, or it could turn something that's going to, have donations. It could be a submitted proposal. It could be like a donation thing. It could be, like you said, like an investment. It could be another, it doesn't have to go through Catalyst. So a submitted proposal is just one outcome of what I think. Does there have to be this middle step? There doesn't necessarily have to be this middle step. It could be like an insight creation idea, and it's very embryonic, and that could lead to donations investments straight away. People could formalize it a bit better, because the idea is it's very free flowing at this top bit. We don't want to restrict. I wouldn't want to have a data model that kind of restricts exactly what you put in. It's kind of like, maybe there is future merit into kind of breaking these down. If you're adding an issue, what's it about? But I think we'd have to learn that over time and see if that adds value. I'm not sure. But these donations investment could happen straight after that very embryonic simple stage. Maybe it comes in after they actually take it to like a next step. They're trying to formalize how you'd actually approach this. It's like, okay, here's an idea or something, an insight, and it's led to some really draft proposal. And we're going to add in some key things of like, how could we make this happen? And it could take all the lessons of the actual proposal process, like milestones, KPIs, and look at those kind of things. And maybe that's what leads to these donations investments. So I think this is an interesting thought, because I like how we make this. I wouldn't want to, because it's very likely we're, with the APIs that we're working on, that we try and make overlays for creating proposals in idea scale, and we actually start making these next step processes. I wouldn't want to preemptively say, and in the data model decide that once you do the insight creation stage, you have to make some draft proposal to lead to some of these other ideas of donations investment submitted proposals. You want to kind of encourage that anything that makes sense at the time happens, and not try and guide the flow, like, oh, you have to do this before you can do this. And so I like that thought process a lot, because I think it's going to prevent us doing something stupid.
Hi. Another thought, if you don't mind.
Get in.
There's been a couple, this is a thought that's coming from meetings that I've attended, where they've been talking about the different sorts of people that are in the community, and there's different sorts of, people can bring an infinite amount of things to the place, such as the Catalyst community. And so, the thought process that the Jungian archetypes, and so some people will bring a disagreeable nature, which will make you question whether your idea is good or not. Some people will bring a loving nature, some people will bring a fresh idea, some people will bring, the Jungian archetypes. So I don't know if there would be a way for you to collaborate with that school of thought. That I don't know whether they won or not, but it might be a way to collaborate, just as an idea.
Could I expand on that? So these are kind of like types of personality, like how people think or how they interact with certain things. And it's kind of like, let's say they do it more often than not. So that I'll add in a fresh idea, or I'm adding something that's kind. And it's just kind of like you're suggesting, like, are we saying one's better than the other? Are we saying like it's good for, it's good for people who are bringing new ideas to ideas, or just understanding what someone does most of the time? Like if someone's more of a protagonist, or is that, do you think there's value in that? What's the thing that you think might add the value most?
Just the idea that people can be very different, and we tend to gravitate or agree with similar sorts of people to us. So, it kind of ends up in certain types of clubs, in, for example, Project Catalyst. Just a thought, I will remember the name of the guy who's working with the Jungian archetype. So Jung was, the guy who figured out the humans.
I think you've led again here to a really good idea. Once again.
Especially when forming teams, the Jungian archetypes are also employed by big companies to form very cohesive or teams that work well together. It's not about one being better than the other. It's about what kind of thing you want to solve and what kind of archetypes you need to collaborate on to solve this.
So this is kind of like their type of person and kind of how they work and how they think. The other thing that came up to me as a good idea is diversity. Like, it's like, then this is also a privacy concern as well. Like, it is a way the diversity inclusion, when these kind of ideas and things form, how can we think about how they're not just, it's not just people from the UK or the US really leading this, that you can see they're leading the whole process kind of thing. Like, I don't know. The first thing that comes to my mind when I say that is like, oh, they need to reveal data about where they're from when they, when it is, but maybe there's another way to, but solving the problem of diversity inclusion and making sure these solutions that are going to be completely used by any, what could lead to solutions that are used by anyone in the world, the more kind of diversity inclusion, the better. So this encouraging this, I think this is something to encourage, but I don't know how exactly how to do it right now, because I don't like the idea of saying you need to tell me what your identity, your nationality is. You could have zero knowledge proofs that say all we need to prove is you're from a undisclosed kind of nationality, and then we've got like, we can prove that there's 10 different ones, and then maybe it's a threshold. There could be ways to think about that without actually revealing identity. Proving
so what impact would it have to have like, wouldn't it make more sense to have diversity in thoughts and ideas than in like places of living or where we come from?
I would agree. I think that's the instant smashback from what I've just said. But it's like, it's kind of, there's those different environments that lead to differences of thought because it's a kind of a cultural thing, but you don't want to attach it to their identity. It's just how can you kind of, it's like an easy thing to kind of prove that it's like, oh, well, if there's an X amount of people from different parts of the world, generally you're going to have different ideas of thought. How can you take that away and say, oh, there's definitely different, proof. There's proofs there of different types of thought.
I think
it's hard. It's a hard thing. It might be a hard problem to solve.
That kind of difference in thought that stems from differences in background would reveal itself in the different kinds of ideas that are submitted. So it doesn't necessarily have to do with, like, you can get interplay between different perspectives. I think the diversity of thought is probably plays a larger role in helping you shape your idea and play like your perspective off of another perspective. But like anything where it has to do with maybe your cultural background, that would play itself out in what kind of ideas are submitted. And so you get that sort of cultural diversity and bringing together ideas that are related, but maybe have that perspective. I don't think it's something that you would have to sort of put checks and balances into the system to deal with. I think that will naturally play out if you have two people with ideas that fit together, but they come from different perspectives. It's going to what you're trying to do is sort of map out the system space of ideas and how ideas interact with each other and how people fit with ideas and how people fit together, like in teams. So
I the base idea that we started with, encouraging diverse inclusion, really important. I do not like the idea of attaching identity or proving anything in any way. I think it's very clear that I think is the right solution to that. I think the more engaged an insight has, like you said, I think that kind of is proofs in the pudding. If you had a highly engaged comment, you're going to have such a mixture of thought on it. So that is one way.
Another thing that can help to improve diversity of thought from either either how you think or culture, would be to have a small amount of randomness in how people are connected to ideas. Because if you're set, like you're focused primarily on this one subset of ideas, and you don't even have these other ideas in your scope of view, having some way to add some randomness. So like, oh, now I'm going, like it's pushing me to look at this thing that doesn't have anything to do with what I've looked at before. But you're sort of trying to give people the opportunity to remap their interest to the idea space.
This has led to another good idea, and I think that is the up and down vote is this kind of a good way to indicate whether something's roughly good. But people's response to this, an idea and an insight can be really complex. So it could be that, like you're saying, like everyone's got a completely different perception of this and how they're connected together. A way to kind of like add in, let's say, a poll and these kind of different kind of just different democratic voting. I think this idea will lead to this problem, and which problem, and you're kind of going to get some consensus of what is this good for this or this or this, or like what we're trying to solve here, and getting more forms of like feedback and consensus that are not just maybe like a textual comment. It's kind of like and then this again leads back to the engagement and this encouraging diversity inclusion. How can we prove that there's been a lot of thought process, and we think the insight and the feedback is that it will help with this problem, or it will these are the things that we're concerned about, this is the most important thing concerned about, or it's a like checkbox kind of thing where it's like these are the biggest things that block this insight from turning into an idea and a solution. So I love the idea of trying to encourage encouraging feedback processes, polls, votes. And I think that might help with what you're kind of talking about there a little bit. And it leads back to this encouraging diversity inclusion thing as well really well. There we go. We're done it, guys. That's it. Job done. Did you edit anything? That's good. It's going to take me a little while to write this up, I think. There's some good stuff here.
The life cycle will probably split depending on if the insight wants to be turned into a proposal or not. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel.
I mean, you have one life cycle, and you're from the point on where you have the team formed, you can start a draft proposal.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Go.
Like if you've got different types of life cycles, like other things besides proposal submission for how an idea can proceed to being realized, like maybe a way to include is like whatever different life cycles show up in the system, or way people can build life cycles, like build types of life cycles in the system. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I think it's one of those things that we could have. You could have just a decent idea, insight, kind of part of it, and then at the bottom of it, you could always show it, or perhaps on certain ones that have a certain engagement, have like a suggested next steps, and it could be one of them is draft proposals. One of them is like you could just create something and share it, and then you could link, and then perhaps it's like I've created something, I just want to link it to this idea as a solution, and to not like just provide suggestions as what could happen next to kind of guide the flow, but not to say it had like the thing I'd be scared about of push as a narrative is to say we're trying to create these fixed flows of how things should happen. The flow of insight and ideas through to create proposals makes sense in the context of what we're helping improve with Catalyst. But I like the idea of maybe on that insight thing, saying there's other options here. You could share a tool or something like that, or share something, or suggest these other solutions, whether it's donations. You've made something elsewhere, and you're trying to help with investment, or what other kind of any other way that an idea or insight, these kind of things could turn into something else, helping to enable it and not restrict it.
You mentioned donations. Like I don't know, like the idea of donating to an idea, like there's the funding from Catalyst, but like if you were able to donate funds to an idea, like I don't know, like that might play into the way the different categories in the voting, the proposal submission are set up. Like you've got people submitting the ideas for different categories of proposals. But
yeah, I would be concerned that there's I guess there's a few ways you could think about donations here. There is donations that say someone's just, you could have donations just because someone's made a valuable insight or idea and it's just like, thank you, that's great, here's some money. You could also have a donation or to be like, I'd like to see this idea done or this issue solved. And this source cred kind of looks at this where you can boost things. So you're kind of just trying to say, this is really important. I want to encourage it to kind of take it to the next step. And maybe it's something where if someone donates, it could be like a donate link where it actually creates a smart contract that tracks it and says, someone's put some pledge to this because they want to see it happen. They want a team to form. They want this problem to be solved. They want this, maybe they want this insight to be looked at even more. Maybe it's like, here's some data on this. I want to see some more data on it. And here's a donation to see if that happens. And that would also kind of need maybe like a moderation process to be like, let's make sure this thing happens to release the funds. But you could have, go on.
The proposal process is a moderation process. So the like going through the proposal process and getting votes from the community, that would be a form of validation for maybe a group who's trying to solve a problem. Like if you've got people donating to a specific problem, and then you have a proposal that gets accepted through Catalyst, you might be able to have a possibility for extra funding or funding for specific things that maybe the normal process of getting funding from Catalyst wouldn't be able to cover, like depending on how the funds are allocated to projects that exist. Like you might have an idea that focuses specifically on an idea that people are really concerned about and they want to donate to, but in the popular ranking for the votes, it doesn't end up high enough in the ranking to get funding from the normal process.
There's a few things that pop into my mind there. There's like this, I think that like this donation to solve an issue can be linked to the Catalyst process. It could be like you donate and then this is going to be this idea gets attached to a challenge as part of like, so it means if anyone who donates to it's like you get an extra reward. And I think this is something that Dora have been talking about, these kind of Cardano Catalyst natives, where they're going to be like universities that come in and do their own challenges, and you get rewarded in their token to solve their problems. That kind of same kind of thought process could happen here, where someone donates to an idea or an insight or this kind of thing and says, I'd like to see more of this. And then it gets attached to the Catalyst process saying, for ones that's, focused on this kind of idea set in this challenge, or it actually becomes a challenge in itself. There's a few ways to think about this. there's this extra kind of reward from, it's a tack on. It's just like, oh, that, you know, there's some key things that are really important to do with this challenge, or that could have some extra oomph that creates the right incentives for it to, you know, happen faster, and more people to like, oh shit, this is actually a big problem. It's validated. There's extra funds for it. It's going through the catalyst process and it's been attached. I like that.
And also maybe offer, because I know there's the other breakout room right now with the crowdfunding. Maybe I'd offer a segue into this if certain criteria or requirements have been met.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, this could start to link up with the challenge team stuff. More and more, they could start to reference things and be like, for instance, issues. If people provided issues, if it was going to be added to a challenge team and that kind of thing, it would need probably a more strict data model. Maybe you could have someone brings up an issue and it has some sort of data model and says these things are these are problems with this value, this distribution of ADA, this kind of thing, and you're attaching that issue that's kind of well formatted to a challenge. So as people have highlighted it, boom, and then a number of challenges it could be relevant to, and they decide, boom, attach this. And it could be like part of the KPI process. Maybe it's like kind of like, you know, this is like a KPI issue related, you know, an issue that would be solved by like a KPI that could solve it, you know, like it's a numerical thing. It's like not enough diversity or inclusion in these countries, and it's like boom, 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 and it gets slapped in. I like it. A
lot of work to do.
Yeah, this went too well. I don't want people to see this on YouTube. They'll be like, dude, you've been paid for this. Why isn't it all done? Like, come on. Like, you know, what do we pay you for? This system sounds incredible. If only someone could build it. Oh dear. Well, this backlog is beefy. Any other thoughts or ideas?
Probably if I continue shoveling around in my head, but I have to jump off now. Was a lovely session. I hope we continue soon, and or we see what comes out soon out of this. The first version will be exciting.
It's going to be one of these tickets is going to get done, and anyway, you'll come back to this board and I've deleted the other 99. Is that what you're about? We didn't talk about that. Prove it. You know.
You must have been dreaming.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining, Dan.
Take care. Have a good one.
Pleasure. Right. Unless you're going to give me a grilling, I might stop the recording. I mean, if you did anything else thought-wise.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff I've been thinking about over the last several months is very closely related to this proposal. I've got over 70 pages of notes from the different meetings. So,
oh wow, you need to get involved. We need to make a little chat then in Swarm or somewhere where that you're part of, because I imagine you'll give us a good grilling at times.
Well, I don't know. I definitely am interested in seeing this kind of thing happen. Like just a better way to get ideas connected, and how what the process looks like going between the ideas, the separate ideas that people have, and then the group projects that form out of them, like the way that things merge and the way that different ideas play off of each other. So like if there's different perspectives on something, how each of those could maybe build up into something, and then you have competition between ideas that gives that will it improves the efficiency of when you have competition between different things. So that's the sort of thing I've been thinking about a lot recently.
Yeah, I'm not sure how. I guess there could be some product related design that helps to incentivize this kind of collaboration, but to like make it easy to find the related things, like the taxonomy is so important, because like without a good taxonomy of how it's all tagged, you're an awful start of making a technical solution that does it. And then
I think building the taxonomy or having a dynamic way of curating a taxonomy is sort of the main thing that I was thinking about. Like then you have a structure where you can put all the different ideas, like maybe something that incentivizes people to condense ideas. So if there's multiple wordings for the same idea, like merging them into one thing, having a concise way of expressing any given thing, and then how they play between each other.
I think you've just led to another idea, which is insight refinement. It's almost like you have like a Google Docs and you're doing revisions of idea insight. So how could we, this is, if you have a good taxonomy, you can see other things that are going on. How can you encourage them to merge? But then you also going to want to see how it progresses. Like if you add, everyone could add comments and kind of thing, but it becomes become a bit messy. How can you make sure you can edit the insight so you can maybe show the flow from what it started with? Because I think that history is quite important too.
Like minimizing the amount of data present is a good thing without compromising the ability to express the system space. So
yeah, how to the obvious thing is obviously you do like word limits to try and encourage that, and there may be merit to doing that, like when you tweets and that kind of thing. But
I'm not sure about like word limits necessarily. What I was thinking about is you maybe the shorter and more concise, and the simpler the wording, that there's a way of giving the idea a better rating or something. I don't know, or I'm not sure how it would play out. You want different people to be able to contribute to something. So say you originally give an idea and then someone else refines the wording of it, then the idea is still linked back to you, but this other person, maybe their contribution is being able to make it easier to understand for other people or something. And you might have the link back like of approval saying that, yeah, this is saying the same thing that I meant, or how that plays together. I don't know.
I think that there's two ways. No, I like, again, that's another idea you've just thought of another idea. This leads to original insight person. They could create a new one that's based on that one, and they link it and they say, I've got this new kind of thing that's based on this, and you're kind of backtracking, and it's like it could be an expansion or something related. Or you could have it so you have an insight or some idea, whatever, and someone literally suggests an amendment. So they're like providing they get the body and they kind of make this kind of change. They go, have you thought, add this, and you suggest that amendment, and then the author would be the one who decides, yeah, I think I absolutely agree on that. And obviously they could add it to the comments thing, but this is kind of like this kind of revision of the existing idea. Perhaps maybe that is a valuable thing to do.
You can make it all you need to do is add a timestamp, and then you can turn it into a persistent structure, and you can replay the history, like see where something started and where it went in the end. But you don't have to look at the history. You can just look at the current state of the system, and that's less complicated for someone who just wants to go through and scope out which ideas they're interested in working with.
I think I like this. Yeah, I think it's like most sites will show you. They show you the latest revision. There's a button that says if you want to see how it kind of evolved, you can, and you get that experience. So this is definitely definitely important to do with things like proposals and the stuff we're looking at in auditability, which is the meeting for that tomorrow. Is let's say I have some milestones or some KPIs. If I change those after being funded, that shouldn't be like an issue, because sometimes the milestones can change and what you're actually doing, and the KPIs can change. This is a better metric, we've learned, but you also want to see that history of change has happened. And for the proposal changing like the process, it's kind of obvious that's valuable. For this insight thing as well, it's also valuable there because it's such a free flowing thing. There is no like, it's worst, it's its most embryonic stage or its most malleable stage. There's gonna be a lot of change, but if instead of it being like a repost 10 times with 10 different insights that just going to slightly expand on it, if you could show the best version of that, but then also show the history, you start to make this more kind of condensed but effective experience. So there's the suggest an amendment kind of idea has a lot of value, because this is the kind of thing that can become overbearing very quickly, where you could have lots of different insights and different topics and that kind of thing. It's like it's impossible to use the ecosystem, kind of like idea scale and doing the voting thing. Like, going through that is not easy. So I think this thought process is really important. So more things to do. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, sorry for joining late. I was interested also in this meeting, and I'm sorry because I really love like this co-creation meeting. Yeah. I feel I missed quite a lot.
It's been a humdinger. It's still recording now. But there's been some really good stuff in here that we go through as we kind of start adding it down. So the video is going to be quite valuable actually. We're in too deep, and $10,000 isn't enough, is all I can tell you. But there's some really cool ideas of how this could all link together. I don't, if you had anything in your mind, I don't know, have you used the insight sharing thing on IdeaScale? Do you know what that is?
Can you repeat, please?
In IdeaScale, there's an insight sharing stage. Have you seen it?
Can you repeat? No, can you show it to me like quickly? I have a good visual memory.
Yeah, let me have a look. Let's have a look.
I did search projects on IdeaScale, but I never used that tool to navigate with the projects. If this is your question.
Yeah, let me see if my browser is going to work, because if I stop sharing for a second, it might speed up. There we go. It's going slightly faster now. So yeah, what it is when we start each funding round, there is an initial stage which is all about insight sharing, and it's open for 1 week at the beginning. Insight sharing archive.
I did not see it.
Yeah, so this is actually quite a common thing. Let's have a look. I think this is it. Insight sharing reserve. I can share the link in the chat, but then I will also share again. Ta-da! Right, so when you go to IdeaScale, on the right, if I go into like Fund 6, on the side, you have active campaigns, yada, yada, yada. I think that's like the problem sensing thing. There we go. So it also goes into the reserve, but at the bottom here, you can see Catalyst process improvements. So understanding problems with Project Catalyst or key mission. So this is going to, well, the wording here doesn't really suggest insight sharing, but it is the insight sharing stage. So but you can browse ideas there.
I have to tell you that I'm not really used to your accent, your native accent. English one.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry for that. It's my fault.
Yeah, no.
But
it's speed, and maybe my pronunciation isn't super clear. I'll try and speak slow and more pronounced.
I still have to figure out in my mind how it's written inside sharing. Was it the word?
Sorry.
Okay.
Insight sharing.
I'm lost. I'm gone.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Just go ahead. I'll catch it up. I'll catch up. So this is basically you browse a list of ideas, proposals.
It's before the proposal submission phase. Before you start doing proposals, you're just sharing ideas. That's all. Like,
oh, it's beautiful.
People are looking at each other's ideas before they decide what they're going to start doing their proposal on.
You should keep this open all around. I mean, one can have ideas not only 1 week every funding.
Exactly.
I mean, and actually, I was working on some idea that I will not be able probably to submit for Fund 7, but it's an interesting idea, and it would be nice to have a home to start building this idea. So it can be like a seed where even multiple people can collaborate instead of a Google Doc, which happens often. And then from there, you start building. That's probably the conclusion that you already got.
We've had these kind of thoughts. Yeah, we've started to have these kind of thoughts. Is how can we help this collaboration early on with these ideas? So like you said, it should be there all the time. But it shouldn't be a week thing. It should be like people just, I have, scalability is a problem with Cardano. Like I want to produce like an insight to show you why it is the problem. I want to try and encourage some action. People can engage with it and they start to collaborate. They suggest some things or some other insights to add to this one. And it starts to build up a source of information and engagement, like up votes, for instance, that this is important. And then that's the kind of engagement you're looking for. And then we're looking at, okay, how can that lead to future things? How could people be rewarded for it? How could it lead to proposals? How could it be attached to challenges? All this stuff is really, really valuable.
Yeah, it will be very, very valuable to have like somebody building a network between ideas. And for this, you probably have to give some incentive. I mean, if I can find the links between, let's say, this idea, information overload, existing proposals, challenges, that would be nice. You can even visualize it as a graph, but the idea is to simplify navigation.
Yeah, so similar. This is another thing we've been talking about is taxonomy and how these are linked together. That's kind of like the starting step of making sure that when ideas go in, they have to have some sort of like tagging and things like that. Like if you don't ask for that or make sure it happens, then it's just like you become exactly what the voting process is now, which is just too much information to go through. Like if I'm only a specialist in DeFi and I want to vote on that, I want to do insights on that, I should be able to just focus on that part of the process because that's what I'm involved in and that's what I'm interested in. Same thing for ideas and insights. So this taxonomy, super, super, super important. And I think this is the thing that's going to stop me and Darlington probably from launching anything in the next few weeks for this insight sharing week, because we need to think about this taxonomy thing a bit. There's someone we've talked to, Maury, who's been funded for a skills kind of taxonomy and education kind of credential identity, the Tyler Prism challenge. And he's going to be very useful for getting feedback on this taxonomy stuff because he spent a lot of time on taxonomies. So yeah, similar thoughts, which is good. And you were very quick to point out a lot of things we've been chatting about.
Well, let's say that I got an insight. I saw the board and probably my mind followed somehow. Yeah.
It's a good board. It's a good board. I'm gonna make an NFT and sell it. It's a decent one.
I'd like to get the recording, but I'm still a newbie. really like a really new one. And I probably won't be able to find the recording unless you explain me how.
I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording. Bye, guys.